what does Pate State think about LSU bringing in Jayden Daniels? A lot of quarterbacks in there now. For those of you who weren't aware of this, yes, Jayden Daniels, that high-profile transfer from Arizona State, he's not in the portal anymore. He has portaled. It's a verb. Get used to it. Jayden Daniels has officially portaled to LSU. What a quarterback room now. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but to remind you, he was the number one dual-threat quarterback in the country in 2019. Obviously played a couple of years at Arizona State. Now, he is a grad transfer, but because of that lingering COVID eligibility deal, he's got 2 years left that he can play if he so chooses. Huge variance in opinion here. I told you this a couple of weeks ago when he first went in the portal. There's a camp when you talk to him that says he's a guy that is too risky, too erratic, and so probably not going to be worth a lot of the hype that's going to be around him. But then there's another camp. These are both informed camps, just differing opinions. There's another camp that says haven't even scratched the surface of his potential because he hasn't been planted in the proper garden, so to speak. And that's essentially saying wasn't in an environment out there at Arizona State conducive to showcasing his skill set and developing his skill set. Okay, now the fun part is he's going to go to a place where his head coach and that staff, they know how to develop quarterbacks. They know how to get every ounce of potential out of those quarterbacks. Which brings me to the quarterback room at LSU. Have you looked at it? In the last couple of hours, it sure has changed. So now, in the quarterback room, you got Jayden Daniels, recent transfer just in the last couple of hours. Miles Brennan, who went into the portal but came back out. He's at LSU. Garrett Nussmeier, remember that name? We were talking about him a lot on signing day last year. Well, he's now a redshirt freshman. And Walker Howard, high-profile kid who just enrolled, and he's already on campus. So these dudes are going to be there for spring, and it's going to be very competitive. This almost certainly means that all 4 of those names won't be on the roster this time next year. Look, we all get that. But I am always a believer in stacking as much talent in these quarterback rooms as you possibly can. There's no downside to it. And some folks foolishly would tell you, oh, yeah, there is a downside because you could scare away some of the good options. If they get scared away, they weren't the best option. It's a process of elimination. That's a natural filtration process. That's like if Brian Kelly's recruiting, and he's down there in what did I say? Kinder. I think Kinder. He's down in Hammond or Kinder, Louisiana, and he's recruiting a kid. And he's 5-star. We got him listed as 5-star. Shame on us because he looks at Brian Kelly and says, I'm only coming to LSU if you promise me playing time. You could either look at Brian Kelly and you could say, ooh, now you got to promise him because if you don't, you risk a good player going elsewhere. He's not cut out for you if he demands playing time as part of the package to get him there. Well, it's the same way here. Put as much talent as you can in that quarterback room. It'll sort itself out. But you can promise yourself this. What you're left with are the guys that you were always meant to be left with, I guess is the best way to put it. So that'll work itself out. But also, this is the modern age of college football. I want you to listen to these numbers and imagine telling yourself, if you're an LSU fan, this number. You live in Alexandria, Louisiana. Imagine telling yourself this in 2009. There's going to come a day in 2022 where Brian Kelly is going to be our head coach. That's the first thing I want you to tell yourself. And then the second thing I want you to tell yourself is we're going to have 15 kids in our signing class from high school. And then we're going to have 14 transfers, and we're still going to have 3 spots left as we enter spring. So you run the numbers there. I had our stats and info crunch them. 15 high school kids currently, 14 from the portal, 3 spots left. I think we're pretty much done recruiting the high school ranks for this cycle. They are at least in a position to be active in the transfer portal now, but especially after spring ball, they're going to end up having more portal kids than high school kids. That's the new reality of college football. It also makes it at least theoretically possible to rapidly overhaul a roster with kids who already have college experience. Will it work out? Well, that's why we're going to watch the games. That's why they're about to tee it up. I think, Jesse, you said later in March 23rd, I thought it was, when they start spring practice. 15, and I'm looking at the number and it's crazy. 15 high school kids, 14 portal kids. But Jayden Daniels to LSU, be very interested to see what you guys think about that. At the very least, I'm intrigued by the quarterback room. This time last year, I thought LSU had one of the best quarterback rooms. One of our buddies, Tim Watts, always makes fun of me for saying that. Number one, because he bastardizes my quote, which he's one to do. And number two, because the quarterback room ended up not being what it looked like it would be. Well, that's why I said at the time in the spring it was. So right now, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 names, which should have varying degrees of excitement surrounding them. chances are that room's not going to look the same by the time they tee it up week 1 in the fall. So I'm going to say the same thing about LSU quarterbacks now. I said this time last year. That's one of the better looking quarterback rooms in the country. And Tim Watts, I hope you're down in Alabaster, Alabama listening, because I mean every word of it.